TeXies are using and are proud of? Do they make sense? Po tej długiej przerwie, leniwym starcie do konferencji mamy teraz Hansa z jego przykładem co przeczytam teraz już in extenso, przetłumaczony przez kogoś. Czy mają sens te elementy typograficzne, z których TeXowcy są tak dumni? Zobaczymy. Hans,
I will talk in English and I don't have Polish sheets.
Well, okay,
we use Dutch ones.
Yeah, okay. So, when I saw the theme of the conference, well, typography, the usual typography theme, yeah. I thought it's very hard to come up with something for this conference that fits the bill. So, but at some point when I saw, I think one of the first talks, the title of the first talk, okay, I can come up with something like similar from the tech perspective. Okay, it will be a bit of chaotic talk because it's just a lot of thoughts that I put down. So maybe we can have some discussions later on, or maybe even in the follow-up tonight when Frans is doing his thing. Okay, typesetting. Let's see what is actually typesetting. There was some time ago an interesting article in one of the Dutch newspapers that mentioned the fact that why and how does language basically evolve? Where does it start? And the kind of theory that it started with making sounds. So I see you and you say, yeah, and you go, and then we go on, right? and then we go on, and we somehow have some kind of appointment that if I do and you do, then we can somehow communicate. And that the next stage was singing, yeah. And well, there's lots of singing here at conferences, so probably that's
communications as well.
And then slowly from that, agreements on this kind of things, language evolved, and then basically, in the end, language turned into speech and constructed things. And that I really like that kind of story behind it. Also may see why it took a bit of while. Okay, so let's say we have reached the point that we have language and we think in language. Basically, we think in kind of audio things, and we want to communicate stuff. So we, after a while, you and I want to remember things. So we put something on the beach in Bachotex, and then of course the water comes and destroys it again. But so we have to do it again. But anyway, we look for more strong things. So we're scratching stuff in the walls of the huts here, and then next time we come and we see that it's still there. We start painting and things like that, and carving. This still takes a really long time, yeah. If you look at the evolution of mankind, we talk about hundreds of thousands of years before we somehow reached the point that we had some agreement about how we communicate all these things. There are all kinds of different writing systems, left to right, up, down, whatever. But anyhow, I think if we look at what, let's say the Romans, where we get all our Roman fonts from, they start systematically putting stuff into some kind of, well, first chiseling, later probably also on permanent and things like that. And we also see things like fonts, yeah, and standardized ways of using symbols involved. And then many years after that, we ended up on putting the stuff on paper. So we are now thinking, let's say, we got printing 400 years back, and then recently, in only a few decades, we managed to map the whole mess on pixels.
Which brings us back to point number 2. It's like writing on sand.
Yeah.
If there is no power, there is no text.
Yeah, back to silicon. Yeah. But if you talk about typesetting, what we call typesetting, that only happens if you look at these time scales, yeah, which is a very long one, then you know there's always this, we are living in the last 5 minutes of blah blah blah. I think typesetting is only living in the last few minutes of this whole development. We should keep that in mind. It's not something that is old. You know, if you talk about tradition, we talk about something that's a few hundred years old. It's already tradition. And if you talk about what we're moving to, we're already losing that. Basically, I will come back to that later. And it maybe over time it will suddenly look like something. Oops. You know, there had been something like what they call typesetting. Okay, so in the process, I already mentioned it, we somehow managed to standardize these shapes. Maybe that's why it took 100,000 of years, because we usual scribbling about these things, and finally we settled on, okay, this is we use this funny symbol, we call it overneck, and we put it below something, and let's standardize on that. At least to the level that we can communicate with it. It's often interesting to see if we have language development, similar thing. Dutch language, if you would ask a kid about the Dutch language, it would probably think that it has been there forever, but it only standardized a few hundred years ago. There were different writing systems and different, it was just different. I think French even younger, and I'm not sure about German, but German probably the standardization is also not that old. It's not like two generations later, you think that the stuff has been there forever, but it never was. It was just new. And we kept inventing new symbols. I only have to point at Unicode, which keep inventing new symbols, the smileys and all the kind of stuff that get in there. Also, if you look at the last decades, more and more typesetting became automatic. There has been attempts, of course, in the past to do it in mechanical ways, automatic, but it's not automatic in the sense that it's really handy, fast, and reproductive. And of course, as with all these things, there are all kind of silly arguments involved in this whole process, in going from, let's say, a thought, putting it on paper, presenting it to somebody. And this is one of the things, if you talk about the theme of conference, that I think thinking about of bringing it up once on a tech conference, because it's also one of the things that annoys me a lot if you talk about discussions, even on tech-related mailing lists and things like that. And so let's do a little bit of a sidetrack. I run on my machines Windows 8. Now, if you go on the internet and you look up what people write about Windows 8, it being bad, it being whatever, my opinion is that most of those reviews and things are completely crap. Yeah? I've put it on my machines, I don't want to go back. There's absolutely, in my opinion, nothing true of what all these people say about it, because one of the things that happened is they made the interface simpler. They made a very, I think, wise decision not to go on the route of making things more fancy and complex, but to simplify. And the basis, in my opinion, of design and proper design is simple and not complex. That's one thing. The second thing is, you read about the missing start button. Now I can tell you this, if you have to take the mouse, you go to start, you have to select something from a menu, you scroll a few other things that are under that, and then after 5 clicks have your choice being made, that's definitely more work than hitting one button, seeing the screen, hitting it, and in 2 clicks you are where you have to be. Yeah? Now no matter what's there written on the internet, yeah, people didn't use it, people didn't look at it, they just copy each other's thought. Now this is, in my opinion, one of the tricky things of these days. You know, there are, let's say, the Windows haters here that can tell a lot of things about something that they've never experienced and seen. Yeah? And they can be sitting in front of a system that does exactly that what they are saying should not happen. Luigi can probably give a demonstration of it. He freshly installed Ubuntu desktop. I just saw it sitting next to him. I become people run crazy because all of the flashy effects and whatever. Now the thing is, this has nothing to do with design. Design has to do with keeping things simple and getting the message across. So, come back to the topic of this talk is, we have this internet, and all these opinions, and all these developments, and whatever, but how many people really come up with original ideas? Most people tend to copy and say, okay, this looks ugly because I've read there and there that it looks ugly, because somebody there copied from another person, thinking that it would look ugly, and that's what makes the opinions nowadays. A lot of people just copy their silly arguments, I would say. And I think the same is true for typography, and I will come back to some examples later. Things should look, we think that some things look good because we have been told they look good. We think Tech does a pretty good job on typesetting because we are told Tech does a pretty good job on typesetting. Okay, just follow up on this thread, I come back to the other thing later. Arabic, very complex handwriting system, you could say. Probably can be told more about it by people who really can write it. Maybe Kave and go on that. The thing is, what we've seen is the last decades, we have automated the process. And Tech can do a pretty good job on that too. But still, you might wonder if the past wasn't better than today. A lot of scribes get basically out of business because they have completely, they made themselves redundant because they can suddenly do it automatically. On the other hand, there's also a benefit in the automatism. We can have more production, more people doing it, and whatever, because the systems are that clever that they can make very nice looking things, given the proper fonts, out of very complex input. So there are good and bad ways involved. But anyway, it's sometimes good to think of yourself just as we have sort of similar revolutions when we introduce all these Macintoshes in the design bureaus, where what was it, the lithographic people were kicked out, the real typesetters were kicked out, and everybody was making their own crap. And within 5 years, a complete group of craftsmen were just put away, made redundant. And the same things can happen in about this kind of basic things. Okay. So typesetting. Let's go into more details about what basically its purpose is in the first place. Let's start with something simple. It may sound in my talk as if I think that the book will disappear. So what's exactly a book? I visit, I think, a bookshop and CD shops every week. Buy lots of that kind of stuff. Always take in one of the CD shops they have this magazine which discusses new stuff that has shown up. Now I can go on the internet, of course, and I can try to figure out what new is there. But I find that if I have this laying around, that I actually look at it, systematically go through it, use the internet to listen to things on YouTube that I think could be interesting. But this is my starting point. Paper is still my starting point. And
you are an oldie.
No, I did. Yes,
you buy CDs.
Yeah. Okay.
You Spotify.
Right. I know. I can go into detail, but let's do that later. There's one point I want to make about books that still in this moment. No, I can put it here. Forget about it. 2 days later, I see it. That's not necessarily true with the window that I opened on my screen, rebooted the machine, the window is gone, and I've forgotten that I have to look into it. There's another thing, Think about kids. I can do this, and it's still usable. Now, I'm not sure if you want to do that with your iPhone, iPad, or whatever. At least not in this stage. But it's undoubtedly that new interfaces will bring new ways of reading. I have my iPad with me. Here's it. You know, I actually have one of these machines. It's in a quite okay working state because I haven't dropped it yet. The only drawback is it's 3 years old, and companies that make billions of bucks and even have them on the back account just refuse to support this kind of things after 3 or 4 years. So the browser is just lousy, it crashes on recent websites, things like that. So there's another thing, you buy something, you know, even 10 years from now I can still read this. I'm not so sure about this one. I actually have one. There are sometimes people on contact lists say, yeah, well, you don't use e-book, blah blah this, blah blah blah. I have one. I'll put it here, so if you want, you can have a look at it. This is a really nice thingy on, you know, you can go through it, scrolls independently. It's the only thing I've ever read on a device like this. Because this is something that looks different. Yeah, it looks different than a book. It's also available in the book. I still have to buy the book. It's one of the things books that is on my list to buy, but actually I've read it already on this device. So this is, I think, a nice example. The only problem I have is that if you read it, you see your own mirror in the screen, yes, which somehow is so annoying that I never really read novels or anything. But anyway, new interfaces will bring new ways of reading. This is one, this swipe is one of the things. I put that between bracket leap motion. It should have been released by now, I think, but this is a new device that I really look forward to having one, because you can point to the screen and it will do things like that. It's one of those startup projects, and I think that might revolutionize user interfacing. The funny thing is that at the same time, on one of those blocks that you run into when you do some Googling, I read some guy saying, oh yeah, we have nowadays, we have those touch screens, so why is this machine still a touchpad? Listen, because I don't always want to touch the screen. Yeah? If my hands are sitting here, I want to use them here. So another thing, if you talk about new interfaces, is that we will end up with a mix. There is no good and best answer. In spite of what a lot of these companies want to tell us, that there is the only best in whatever way. But things will happen. And then we might go beyond all these small apparatus. I think Google is trying to do something like that with this Google Glasses project. On the other hand, they have locked up the system in a way that nobody can do anything useful with it except of Google itself. So that might as well be the end of the whole thing again. But I think it's the first step that will basically bypass machinery. You know, if you can already project it on your eye, how far are you away from other things? Okay, maybe people don't want to think about it, but as I told in the beginning, yeah, on these 100,000 of years we are sitting here, this typography. So don't tell anybody what will happen there. Yeah, maybe 20, 30 years from now, they will look upon us as these old-fashioned people who thought it would not happen. I was looking at either the first generation, or I think it's third generation iPod. It looks like crap compared to the new thing. So somehow, you know, it goes so fast, and the same will happen with this kind of thing. Okay, the funny guy has glasses with projected something on his. Well, next time it will be inside, yeah? And it will happen somehow. And it might as well be that then high quality rendering, so the things that we do on screens or on paper or whatever, will move completely to the art department. You know, if we can have far more efficient way of getting stuff inside our head, as the information that we want to get, it might end up there. And I wonder if in the end, and we're talking about maybe decades from now, we will survive, it's no problem. But the question is 150 years from now, just as the first talk, 150 years from now, will there still be something to print? Will there still be trees you can even ask to be used for print? So I think there will be changes. There will be changes the way we discuss among us things like this. Just look at how kids deal with information. I've understood that there's a serious problem now in Dutch education to get kids interested more than 10 minutes
In anything.
in anything. This has big consequences for school books and other things like that, but also for teaching. It's become increasingly difficult. The interesting thing is there that you might sidetrack. Wonder if we are up to that. You know, our minds. If the humans are up to that kind of changes that we have. If you look at the number of corrections that we apply to kids, all kinds of special treatments and pills and whatever kind to get them into the system again, I might wonder if at some point we should say maybe we should adapt society to kids and not kids to society, but that's a different story. I have here quite a nice book about, it's called a Twitter course, but it's called a Twitter course about the universe, and they try to explain the universe in one paragraph sentences that don't exceed the length of a tweet. I must say I never have thought about Twitter. I don't have Twitter around. I'm not interested in that kind of stuff, but it somehow works if you look at this. Yeah, this kind of actually these are typically the books that I buy because they look nice. And it's meant for kids. Okay, let's move back a bit in time. Yeah, we are still doing typesetting here. So what are the goodies that we so far came up with? Well, we had these individual shapes. We could chisel them in stone. Eventually we could somehow use this kind of machinery to render them in such a way that we could put them on paper. For some reason, yeah, at some point in time, it made sense to save space. Yeah, you want to paper was not universally available, and maybe even the manual work and the ink and whatever was a problem. So let's squeeze more into a small place. So we put things on top of each other. I think I was told that the umlaut was actually a U and an E on top that became two dots, things like that. We have the same in Dutch, some combination things. I'm not sure where the E or connect comes from, probably also kind of compacting information in a smaller space. So that's one of the things that happened. And then there were attempts to make things look better. My impression is that the ligature is probably one of the examples of that. You want to somehow get rid of these weird combination and touching thingies, the I with the dot, and then you start making combinations. More recently we have things like color, and not only one font, but multiple fonts. In the samples that were shown in the previous talk, you already can see some of the headlines have 6 or 7 fonts in one line. So it already started 150 years ago. We go from left to right, right to left, top to bottom. We go in all kinds of directions. That's more, of course, a property that we inherit from the language and the scripts. But nevertheless, the systems can do it, and we can mix all that kind of stuff. Another thing is that well, just look at the proceedings, yeah, which has a certain form, and somehow it's needed to get the stuff in columns, and we go through a lot of trouble to getting all this stuff in columns. I'm still sure Kavi can talk a lot about magazines and struggling with columns and all the stuff that all these things always want to, you know. I'm actually glad that I'm not too close involved in that kind of things. The funny thing is that on the other hand, all the newspapers that use columns and magazines, they're basically phased out. Yeah, there's nothing left. The side note, somehow when writing it down, I realized that, you know, there has been these things like there will be less print in the future than we had in the past, and still we see that a lot of stuff is being printed. But if I look at what I put in the paper bin, yeah, which is actually filled up, the big thing filled up at the end of the month, is nearly always advertising crap and other stuff. So it's not necessarily that we get better stuff that gets printed than in the past.
Sorry, there will not be less advertised print. It will be more focused print, advertised print.
Yeah, but
you don't get your 5 million copies of the IKEA catalog for every Dutch household anymore, or eventually, but you will get 5 million individual
but then
IKEA catalogs.
Sure, but it's still a lot
The
of
printing volume is actually increasing. Or what's increasing is the volume of electronic PDF or whatever. It may not be actually paper, but there is not less.
No, I'm not saying that it's less. I'm saying that you know, let's say it used to be for me useless newspaper that I would read, but now it's this useless targeted IKEA thing that immediately moves into the bin.
Yes.
That's the difference. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that if you talk about kids, they don't look into this IKEA thing. They look on their phone and see what IKEA is, if they're interested in it at all. Because one of the other things I read in the newspaper that it seems the research is showing that kids are way less attached to things than we are. You know, there's something like we want to have this. Yeah. They're saying on the CD, want to have this CD. They don't care about it as long as they can play the song. It's right. It doesn't matter where it comes from. And the same is actually happening with other touchable things. Might even be they don't care about having a car. Yeah, they just share the car or rent a car or whatever. But we are still the audience that say, I want to sell you this car. So I make this targeted brochure for you to get this car. Well, these kids forget about the car.
I just want to get from A to B. Yeah.
Yeah, and I take the neighbor's car because it's sitting there. So that completely changing business models. We even optimize the art of the unreadable. Yeah? So take for instance these old computer model Dunhill, yeah? The kind of things that the things that we don't want to read, or you know, the warnings in movies and other kinds of. Okay, and we can tweak fonts and mess with kerning and fool ourselves with conclusion. Actually, this sentence, if you look at how typesetting is very large spacing because there's some record, it is not record write this one. So there you see that even a text can tweak and mess with the spaces in order to satisfy our needs. And we can do all kinds of stuff like rotations and scaling or whatever. Interesting is this still is this still of importance? If we look at this one page per time thingy, compared to this one, where even if it's, you know, the color, it has inserts, they try to make each page look different. There's a lot of work involved in this. And yes, there has been some conventions, and again, endless debates. Like I am mostly doing typesetting. You would do types of education. It's like somehow a rule that everything should be in sans serif font because it still looks modern or whatever, or it should be in a certain small size of the font. Recently, we had some discussion about math school books, and some guys were, the Lucia the Bright, you use the Bright, it looks like crap. Lucia the Bright is considered to be a pretty good font for math typesetting, yeah, but somehow for designers, they don't want that kind of font. They don't even bother if it's mass. It should be one of the more fancy, probably sans-like fonts. So we have some conventions like mass should look like this, but on the other hand, endless debates of people who consider other. Okay. How far?
Half an hour.
Okay. There's another thing that I wanted to show you. If you look at this gadget here, you know, at some point I didn't have paper at hand, but I had this thing. So I wanted to write down some things for this conference. Now, so I said, okay, there's something on it that I can use. Maybe if you have an iPad or another machinery, you can recognize these kind of things, these yellow tab kind of things. Now, if you really look at it, yeah, what I see is, it reminds me of one of these, you know, you go to a conference, often very expensive conference, you get this pseudo leather stuff, you open it and it's stitches and whatever around it, and there is some paper in there, and it looks very expensive, of course. If you get it from a brochure, it's only a few bucks. It's the same like this. Why should, on this screen, it look like some leather stuff there, with stitches, and simulate something that already looks like crap when you have it in your hand. So why do they do this? This has You know, and this is Apple. This is considered to be high-end design stuff. It's completely silly crap. I think if you look at it 50 years from now, you say, what are these people doing? Why don't you do, you know, it doesn't have that many pixels, so why spend pixels on making it look like something that I have already in real life? So if we talk about the screen, the first step seems to be fake what you have on the screen. So that means that if you have a setup thing that there is this old-fashioned American style on-off button, yeah, that probably nobody in Europe recognizes, but okay, it's associated with a setup, and that's somehow becomes then sort of standard for turning things on and off, yes?
There was recently discussion if the save, why the save button in modern applications looks like a diskette, and if that is a reasonable icon for people nowadays, because like the children they probably never have seen a screen nowadays.
Yeah, or dustbin. Yeah,
what's it? Why is it a save icon? What is it?
Yeah, or an American mailbox. Yeah. I think in the Netherlands now they start stopping getting mail to you on Monday. So maybe in a few years you won't. So will they change all the icons? I don't know. But it's you know, somehow it's very hard for people to get away from what they are accustomed to when they move it to the screen. And the same is probably true for books and things like that. We simply don't yet think that way. There are a few cases. There's actually, if you talk about, there are a few websites that I occasionally go to and say, well, these guys are doing wonderful things. And it's, you know, if this is the internet, it's like we talk about the scent. It's the grain of scent that you have to find, where you can see the real nice stuff. So we get all these funny buttons and borders. The other thing is that is really amazing is that, you know, this laptop is 6 years old. Now for me that's pretty old because I use it on a daily basis, and it's breaking down on me now, but it still has a decent screen. 1200 pixels, 1920 pixels. And Dell was always on the front of that. Till they moved all to this, you know, the 1080 by 1920 ratios. Because somehow the idea was that everybody uses even high-end laptops only for watching movies at work. I guess that's the idea. You know, it doesn't matter if programmers or people doing something with this involved programming or text really like to have a bit of height so that they can see as much as they want. No, give us width. Yeah? I fear that the whole going high res, which is happening this year more or less, even higher res, won't change the aspect ratio. So basically it doesn't. And if we even fool ourselves with these higher resolutions, yeah, you can find on the internet all the interesting discussions about operating systems and how they deal with high resolutions, and then you get this, you know, the usual Windows versus OS X thing, like, oh no, the Mac does it right, it can already, you know, have these big icons. But it's cheating. The icons are also bitmaps, they just scale the bitmap, and if you scale them twice, it doesn't matter much, because you use more pixels and it looks better anyway. Yeah, but it still has the old problem of too little pixels. That doesn't really change it. Just take an arbitrary application that is meant to run on the iPad and the iPhone, and the way it's rendered on the iPad is that it only takes the middle part of the screen, and you see a small iPhone-like thing on the middle part of your iPad. And that's really an indication that the design and the setup of the whole system was never meant to scale. Yeah. So don't come with me with stories like, oh, operating system, no, it's simply not designed that way. It's reinventing everything all the time from scratch, remaking, redoing, whatever. But okay, hopefully more pixels will come. I read somewhere that there will now finally be a high resolution ebook device. I think Kobo is coming with one now. So that might be reasons for me to buy an ebook once again, because the one that I have is actually one of the first that was ever in the market. Never bothered to really use it. Okay, we have these mirror and radiating displays. I already mentioned that. Now, one of the things I might have mentioned it before is, we go from take school books. We have developed nice printing, nice looking books, whatever. Typography. Let's assume it's being applied, and then the screen enters the picture. So we get this display. Now this one has 1024 pixels horizontally. So if we look how many pixels we have for these characters, I can actually see it is 3 pixels for the L, and it's already using different colors. So basically we have 2 pixels for this L. Now this is the classroom. Yeah? So in the back of the room, you're supposed to read this. Yeah? As a kid. And the thing is, it publishes, yeah? So publishers first put 20% advertisement on all crap there, some fancy borders around it because it should look fancy, and then we have only this left, so you can calculate how many pixels it is per character. I went to an exhibition for school, one of these they show and sell school stuff. In one big row it was all these whiteboards and screens, and the other was all these compensation programs for kids with reading disabilities. Yeah, so on the one hand, we show them on the screen completely crappy rendering. Are surprised that they cannot read and don't learn to read. So these kids, they need the 3-4 years old kids. They already need to have glasses in class in order to read the stuff. So that's one point. The other thing is we have to compensate it with expensive programs to compensate them. Yeah, for not being able to read it. No surprise. And I think the same is true for these small devices. We move to new things without always thinking if the move is a wise one at this moment. Now, what does it have to do with typography? Well, for me this. We still think that typographers or designers or whatever are in charge of anything. They aren't. It's the hardware people and the software writers. Those are in charge of. It doesn't matter if you make something nice. If it doesn't sell, it's no longer important. And you can always compensate. And I think that, if you have something that you make very nice looking thing on paper, maybe somebody else looks at this and, well, I'm inspired by it, I do something similar. If you do the same thing on the screen, well, don't get too inspired, because before you know it, you are being sued, and because I think nowadays even trivial things are being copyrighted and whatever. So that's actually stopping progress. Okay. So let's move a bit more into the details of our world, our little world. I think, to come back to what I just said, we already lost everything optimal, good looking or whatever the last few years. I think we fool ourselves in thinking that, that when we produce something high-end, that people will love it and use it and whatever. There are other factors that influence the whole thing. Like, we still think justification is nice, it should be done or whatever. Well, in all projects that I have, we are always asked to do things ragged right. And the reason is that, when we show up, in most cases, it's because some other program couldn't do it. Yeah? And the other program could. What's one of the things that a lot of those programs can't do is hyphenate properly. So what is the safest way for many designers and desktop publishing bureaus to deal with the matter is not hyphenate and don't justify. And that gets between the ears of everybody. So if they see it, and we have cases in the past where people say, oh, by the way, we make samples. I saw that you use justification. Don't do that because it will look bad. It's like, yeah, but you're looking at it. Does it look bad? No, but it will look bad. Yeah, no, it's like people cannot believe that because, well, that's the way it was done in the past. Slightly related, but I don't know how your experience is with browsers, but I never managed to print anything right from Firefox. the kernel is always like it's applied on the wrong side. Yeah? I don't know how they manage. If I have to print something, I copy the URL in Internet Explorer, which I don't use for browsing, but it prints pretty good. Yeah?
Have you talked to Jonathan about it?
I forget that. I'm not even going into these debates. It's another world. Yeah, I've already enough with this little tech world that I live in. But somehow they screw up, and nobody. The thing is, nobody ever bothered. Nobody ever bothered that in version we have now version 22 or whatever. Yeah, that in version 5 of Firefox printing didn't work. Maybe people were not printing anymore. For me, it's the clearest indication that nobody ever complained because nobody was printing.
It's not true.
No, you complained.
Yeah.
And what happened? To the bug
At one point, it's slightly changed a little bit for vertical spacing. Techniques change. So point resolution to 10 point resolution, that's it. But programmers has the same problem. They still do funny kernings and character spacings. Regular text for slides.
But isn't it weird then that the first thing people would complain about, listen, this doesn't look right. Yeah, and there is a big mouth about Word looking bad and whatever. But this open source solution doesn't do it right either. So it says something not about the application, it says something about perception and things like that.
Cool.
Okay. Messing with fonts, that's another thing that, you know, then you get this, yeah, you should increase the leading or whatever, or you should scale this font, blah, 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 like thing. I think a designer makes a font, it has some spacing and kerning and whatever kind of properties in mind. So I would say that somebody who is also a designer would at least respect that part. It's not happening. Let's squeeze and mess around and do whatever and you like.
That's what they pay for.
Yeah. And of course the users they can do the same with layout. They can squeeze it and fit the screen. It doesn't matter, oh let's just scale it until it fits the screen. Who cares? I've seen people using high resolution displays and having the whole stuff configured to be, let's say, low resolution rendering, and you get fuzzy mapping and nobody wonders why it looks like crap. So, why do we TeXies still bother about typography? Look at it. Yeah? Aren't we just doing, isn't it just hobbyism that we are doing? Does it really pay off to pay so much attention to things? Because one of the things that has also changed the last decade is that, you know, the whole idea of tech was I make something and I can reproduce. How many people reproduce? How many publications are reviewed, changed, updated and republished? Yeah? If they are published at all. Those are concepts that are the basis of tech but not necessarily true anymore. You know, even spending time on a design and making it look better can cost you more time than is permitted between writing the stuff and getting it published. Just look at websites, how fast they change. We will reach the moment that there's no need to design something new because it will be outdated and, you know, in order to look new and fresh, you have to change it every year anyway. So what will that do with motivation to change it, to motivation to make it look better, etc., etc.
I think it's still true, not for the design which you make for a specific book or product, but for the tools and the knowledge you have from creating that design.
Yeah, okay,
it will
yeah.
be the same, and in 10 years it will be more like, maybe
you can make it more clever help.
Yeah. And what I learned 20 years ago for latex is still valid, and that knowledge is kept.
Yeah, okay, you can put it in the machinery so that the user can say hit the button and get something that looks right. Okay, the thing is with all these systems that it would look right in the sense of it looks like, okay, 20 years ago it looked right, yeah, but nowadays we expect something different because that could be then we're back to the design issue. I think the same is happening with programs and apps and operating systems and whatever. You know, all these operating systems that come with you know, I won't mention one, but there is one that at some point had 100 new apps. Okay, 100 new apps. Where did I learn the 100 new apps? The next version, another 100 new apps. Basic have built into the system. Where do I learn them? How do I'm not even interested in it. How many people really use the whole bunch of things they get? and now it looks even better. Okay, does it mean that it looked like crap before? No, because before the same advertisement people told us that it also looked pretty well. You know, these times are getting shorter and shorter. And nowadays, if somebody says, or some advertiser says, "Oh, we have now improved this so much that it looked, well, I forget about it. In 2 years, you will tell me the opposite." You know, so I don't believe it anymore. The question is, who do? Okay, let's look at ligatures. So this is one of the things that TeXies really love to say, "Oh, look at this system, it can do ligatures." First of all, the choice, in my opinion, is rather arbitrary. Yeah? If we go back in time, I can find a pretty good reason why, if you are dealing with lead and all that kind of stuff, that you stick to 5 or 6 ligatures. There's of course absolutely no reason to stick to such a few if we have a system like that, which doesn't have basically any limitations. Nevertheless, as soon as people can recognize these couple of things, they feel safe, fine, we have a good system. Okay, look at this. Because there's a lot of detail in these things. This is actually a small lesson for maja. Do you see the differences? Are these all ligatures? Are these ligatures? How do you define a ligature? Maja, on the contact list, told us that she has been using TeX for 10 years and now only recently noticed that there's something like ligatures. When somebody on the list asked, "Why does context turn on ligatures by default? I have been using LaTeX for 20 years and never saw a ligature." What was it? Was that kind of discussion? It got a bit out of hands, but it was like, and so she said, "Well, I've been using LaTeX in the past, I remember seeing ligatures."
Yes.
Okay. So let's have a look at it. Well, a ligature basically, let's say from the technical point of view, is saying I enter 2 characters and they have the potential problem of clashing. Especially if you see them small size. So let's get rid of this thingy there. It's gone there. These are the 3 different fonts. I won't review which ones they are, because I have to look at it because I'm not really good at recognizing fonts. But there are some interesting differences between them. Take for instance this one.
These are ligatures?
Okay. No ligatures.
Define ligature. Define ligature.
A ligature is, for me,
One
well-designed single glyph which represents the original characters which have been put together, closer together. Because this is just putting letters close together.
No, that's because you're sitting there. If you would look at it, what happens here is, this one is an F. This is a different F.
Yes.
Because it's narrower, so that this fits better. Yeah? So this is contextual substitution. Yeah? See this sequence, and they replace one of the F's, do some kerning. I think it looks, if you look at it, quite okay. The thing is, TeXies say, it's not a ligature because I don't see this thing connected and all that. That's what TeXies say. We are just, we are indoctrinated here by this kind of thing.
I didn't see the difference between the 2 F's.
Yeah, but that's because you are far closely. Yeah? The thing is the same, you can say the same things with these things.
Now, but the FFL is the second F also.
Right. Here they could have chosen a different solution, but I'm just saying that at first look you say it's not a ligature, but that's what I say, define ligature. Now look at this one. Look, what is this? What is this? Is it 2H? What is it? It's can you turn off that? It looks like crap. Yeah. Are you shh? Don't tell people who made this one.
Everybody knows, but don't speak about it.
The thing is, the TeXies recognizes it and says, I can make ligatures. Yeah? But to be honest, if we blow up this one or this one, or let's take these and these, this one doesn't look better than that one because it's connected and like that. We are told that it should look better. If we turn them off in text, yeah, the text in many cases will look just as good as if they were turned on. But somehow, you know, of course, you can have lots of arguments or whatever. Maybe it was a space safe issue. Maybe it was to prevent that the printing techniques, yeah, where that this block would flow into the other one. But if printing techniques have become better, that's no longer a problem. If you have pixels, these pixels don't magically flow into the other pixels because there are pixels. You know, we can use different techniques and different ways of looking at it. Just because it's a new thing.
Just to remark, the IJ ligature in this material is highly flawed.
Actually, the I is not really a ligature. This is I have the I there because we know that there is in letter modern, I think also in the other fonts, the neat feature that they look at the I in combination with ligatures. Because in Dutch we have F-I-G-N, for instance, and then you don't want an F-I ligature. You want this one, an F, this one. I think the computer modern family is the only font that has this. Don't you think?
And then it creates totally weird results when you write words with IJ that are no ligature.
It's
just
Dutch related language feature. You won't notice it in Slovenian.
In PDF tag there is no such thing as Dutch TFM.
Oh, you PDF tag, but that's long. I don't remember PDF tag. Martin can tell all.
We have this on record, right?
Yeah, there was something called. Okay. So we have subtle kerning, we have partial substitution, we have different shapes, you just take your choice, yeah. The main message I want to have here is all these TeXies here, please don't claim that you can see the difference and that you know what you're talking about, because 99 out of 100 people, me included, don't know what they're talking about.
Well, it's possible to design a good font without ligatures and bad font with ligatures.
Now, one of the arguments was
possible.
One of the arguments was actually, I think, somebody, I think Thomas, there was a private mail with Thomas Schmidt, who being classicist, of course, likes ligatures. Told me, yeah, so I think one of the reasons why Cambria, because one of the fonts does contextual substitution in Cambria does it is because it was used in MS Word, and because in MS Word uses, MS Word cannot deal with ligatures, blah 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 blah. Well, I think, well, if it can work with complex substitutions, then it can definitely also deal with ligatures because they're simpler than contextual substitution. I think probably the only reason is that the Microsoft people say, oh gosh, let's not give the user ligatures because they start messing up the text. That could as well be a completely other argument, like, oh, because it's a language dependent property. So, are there any Czech here, apart from...
Karel only.
Only Karel, he is tolerant. The thing is, you know, how many debates did we have about these things? How it should look, what the distance should be, and it's the same thing. You know, there was a Latin modern font, and the Polish and the Czech, and the Germans probably, started adding some glyphs to it, because they were missing. And then they got completely indoctrinated by the way it looked. It should look, because everyone was only using those fonts, nobody was using any other font. And then you suddenly see Latin modern or some new thing. You say, oh gosh, this one looks slightly, the distance is slightly slower in Latin modern than it is in Czech. And it could be, I'm saying Czech because there has been discussion here about it. Yeah? Now, if the original extension to MM would have the thing connected, then that would have been the standard. Yeah? It's just how we are trained and indoctrinated by looking at the things. Now look at this, there's no pattern in it. It's the choice of the designer. The designer says, okay, this looks nice, this fits right. Yeah? This is the Zanfino, probably more closer to. This is how I would do it in handwriting, yeah? Things like that. There is no truth there. But still we claim a truth. And we say, our system can do it best or worst, or LM fonts are not good enough because blah blah blah. It's crap. It's complete nonsense. There is no good and bad things. Of course, we can say there's a lot of bad. That's not good. But as soon as you cross a certain border and quality level, then it's. I got a mail from design said, well, this font, Lucida in this case, it looks very bad. It doesn't have hinting. What does hinting have to do with something that gets printed on a high resolution machinery? Completely nothing. Yeah? I cannot mail back say, please buy a decent screen. Yeah, the same, these colors all look brownish. I cannot say, please calibrate your screen. Yeah? Because I'm not educated and the other guy is educated behind. But that's a bit the thing that you have to deal with. So if somebody looks at this on his iPad and says, this looks bad, let's be honest, we have only so many pixels to put the thing. So if you snap it slightly lower or higher, it will never look good. And there is no truth. And it is not going to be okay for all of us. And to be honest, as long as people accept these funny stitched fake leather interfaces on their notebook, they should not complain about accents being put a little bit too high or too low. That's justification. Okay, you recognize it? I put it there. The Chinese, the conference in Chinese, when we, yes, you should recognize it. When we were there, had it was a bit of time that the first version of Bachotex was announced. Now, think of China, with all these high quality calligraphic things. So a lot of attention is being paid to. You can, by the way, see the same in Arabic. Arabic, all this handwriting stuff very nicely, and then you suddenly see a newspaper or something on the television. And
absolutely
crappy, sans serif, big, bold, non-touching Arabic shapes. And of course, what happened there, the same is true with China. As soon as they get away from their paper, books and whatever, and you see the advertisement and whatever, it's complete crap. Maybe I'm offending somebody, but this is my opinion. Of course, the same happens in Latin and whatever, but there we have, I think, a longer tradition of having better display fonts and things like that. So maybe that's it. Now look at this. So this is, you can say, from a basically different culture view on Western typography. What do they see? Korea. So what do we chisel in stone? Korea. Oh, they have some spacing. You see? Let's make sure that it is justified. Let's add a space. Because if you look at probably the average Western, Latin, whatever document, spacing is so crappy, and I would dare to say a lot of text documents included, that you, if you look at it once, okay, this is the norm, this is how it should be done. So, okay, let's put the space there. Small dots, I think they forgot something, let's chisel the dot there. There are even different quotes, these two are different, and I think pretty sure that these two are different from these. I'm not sure how they did it, they maybe projected it on something and then chiseled the whole thing in, but it is definitely inspired by the way at our end of the world we do our typography. There's spaces, finished spacing we use to it. So this was slightly larger, we have two spaces, so we use the mono-spaced, and don't think that let's say in our word processing or whatever we did, we didn't make those errors. You still get designer specs saying the header line should be separated from the main body of text by two new lines. The header should be 3 new lines high, 3 lines high. They still specify in the number of character terms that there are on the typewriter and whatever. Not much changed here.
You took a very nice sign to photograph or shown here because we saw much worse ones.
Yeah, I have a worse one, yeah. But this one was at least showing. This was showing this one. I wanted to have that one. Yeah, but we were standing there. It was like, what was it?
What's this material?